Alright guys, today is an episode of The Best of the Rest, and we'll start off with Sporting versus Tottenham. Now, it was never going to be an easy game for Tottenham, but they really weren't good enough, to be honest. Sporting created the better chances throughout the game. Marcus Edwards was on absolute fire. He was constantly causing the Spurs defence problems, and I think he looks like a player Spurs might regret selling a few years ago, because he was absolutely superb. You can see why Pochettino said he has the dribbling ability of Lionel Messi. Tottenham's attacking chances, they mostly fell to the wrong players. Emerson had a couple. You want them falling to Kane and Son and Richarlison, not Emerson Royal. Richarlison, I felt, had a bit of a strange game because he was doing the correct things. He was making good runs, but he wasn't timing them enough. And on a few occasions, it wasn't even his fault. The ball was delayed a little bit, and when he got the ball, he was offside. So that was a bit of a problem for Tottenham throughout the game. And yeah, I'm just reading from my notes here. I thought Sporting that they set up well. They had a brilliant game plan of try and hit Spurs on like the counter attack. Let Spurs have quite a lot of the ball, which they did, especially in the second half. And then they got their reward right at the end of the game through a goal from Paulinho. Ironically, the name of a former Spurs player, a bit of a flop though for Tottenham. I think they signed him with the Gareth Bale money all them years ago. And it was a really good header, flicked onto the back post and nestled just inside the post. And they got one in the 3rd minute stoppage time as well as the first, through Arthur Gomez, who came off the bench about 2 minutes before. And that was his Sporting Club de Portugal debut, which is a very, impressive debut, coming off the bench in stoppage time and scoring a brilliant goal like that. Getting past Christian Romero with ease, Emerson Royal as well. It was superbly taken, and I mean, in him and Marcus Edwards, I mean, just from those two moments in the game today, where like Marcus Edwards had a moment where he just turned into the reincarnation of Lionel Messi and Diego Maradona combined, and just ran through Tottenham's entire team, did a 1-2 and forced Hugo Lloris into a save. But yeah, Arthur Gomez took his goal brilliantly as well. And had Marcus Edwards' goal, shot gone in the first half, that had been a goal of the season to contend straight away. He takes on virtually the entire Tottenham Hotspur team. So that would have been some goal had that have gone in. So yeah, Hugo Lloris, though, he was forced into making a lot of saves for Tottenham. There was one from Pedro Gonçalves in the first half, Marcus Edwards in just before half time as well, and also a save in the second half, which he was at full stretch for as well. So that it's not a great look for Tottenham, because on another day Hugo Lloris might have conceded any of them chances, and he didn't really have much chance with either of the goals, to be honest. So it could have been worse for Tottenham, is the point I'm trying to make here, because yeah, they really weren't at it, Tottenham. It was their worst performance so far this season. I think that's probably fair to say. I think, to be honest though, after they had failed to get a goal in the second half, I think with 10 minutes to go, they just sort of thought, right, we'll just take a draw here, because they won their opening match at home, and you win in the Champions League group stage. The aim is win your home games and try and nick a draw in the away games, and then you'll be fine. And I think Tottenham tried to do that, but they just didn't really succeed in doing so. So yeah, it was a good performance from Sporting, and they're top of the group right now on 6 points after their win against Eintracht Frankfurt last week, and they look like a really exciting side. I don't watch much Portuguese football, but I'd imagine they are like the team to be watching right now, because they were superb on Tuesday in that game against Spurs. And then Celtic played Shakhtar Donetsk in the early kickoff on Wednesday evening. Sorry, and they were mostly the better side, I would say, throughout the game. It was a really good performance considering they were away in Ukraine, which I mean, it's never easy to go to any away game, to be honest, for Celtic when they are, back in the Champions League for the first time in a few years. They put in a really good performance the week before against Real Madrid, but Real Madrid, their class just shone through eventually. And this week, they were the better side, in my opinion. In the first half, they started causing problems right from the off. Kyogo Furuhashi had the first real chance of the game, which was saved by the Shakhtar Donetsk goalkeeper. Possibly should have done better with it, Kyogo, but picking at straws there. And yeah, they got the opening goal through Rio Hatate. It was a bit of a lucky goal. Came from a ridiculous clearance. I think it was from Juranovic at right back, and all the way forward. And I can't remember who it was out on the left hand side, but laid off Hatate, and Hatate sort of tried to put it across goal for Kyogo, but it deflected off the defender towards the goal, and Kyogo made the right decision in leaving it just in case he was offside. So yeah, that was definitely the right thing to do. But Shakhtar, that they were definitely looking dangerous down the left-hand side, particularly through Mikhailo Mudryk, who his pace just could literally tear anyone apart. It was ridiculous how fast he was at making runs. There was one point where he covered twice as much ground as the Celtic defender to get the ball first. And that was where he scored from, and it was a really good finish, lifting it right into the roof of the net, giving Joe Hart very little chance to save it, really. And yeah, I thought Celtic, once they did concede that goal from Shakhtar, they did sort of look like they had the ability to crumble, which was the only possible negative I think you could take away for Celtic, because Shakhtar, when they scored with about 15 minutes left to play in the first half, Celtic, they lost control of the game for that period. Shakhtar managed to get control of possession a lot more and create a few chances. In fact, about 2 minutes after the goal, they had a goal disallowed to make it 2-1. It was from Shved, I believe, and it was correctly disallowed, but because Mudryk had just about run the ball out of play, but only just. So Celtic did get a little bit fortunate there. But after the half-time whistle went and Celtic came out in the second half, that they were back on top again. But this time they were playing a slightly different style of football. They were going more through Jota on the left-hand side, who was performing all sorts of mazy dribbles throughout the second half and constantly causing Shakhtar problems. His efforts, though, on goal were a little bit tame and slightly easy for Shakhtar's goalkeeper to save. And the other thing I did notice throughout the game was, although Celtic did have quite a few options off the bench, that I thought they were missing Abada throughout the game, like a fair bit, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, for that goal that Celtic scored, I think it's got to go down as one of the clearances of the century, because the goal doesn't happen without that clearance. But yeah, for Celtic, it is looking quite good now. A point from their first two games, and it is two very tricky first games against Real Madrid and Shakhtar. You don't expect Celtic to get anything out of playing Real Madrid, so the fact that they performed probably better than Real Madrid in the first half is an achievement in itself, to be honest. So yeah, I think that's it's a good start to the group for Celtic, and I wouldn't have thought they'd get through, but it's looking like it's possible at least. And Ange Postecoglou has definitely got them playing a good style of football, and they do have the ability to give anyone a game at the moment in Europe. And then in the Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff, Newcastle and Bournemouth played out a 1-1 draw at St James's Park, and it was a bit of an unlucky game for Newcastle. They hit the post twice in the first half, and also Bournemouth's goalkeeper Neto was just brilliant throughout the game, making numerous amounts of saves. But I do want to talk about Bournemouth to start with, because they obviously, their start to the season was by no means an easy start. They in their first game they got a really good result against Aston Villa, first game of the season. So nearly promoted team, anything can happen in those sorts of games. But then in the next three, they faced arguably the three best teams in the league again, in Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool, and got beaten comfortably by all three, and that cost Scott Parker his job. So the problem was, I found Scott Parker, was they were playing 5-4-1 formation, which doesn't work unless you have the two wide players in the four pushing forwards, and they have to have quite a lot of pace and almost act as wingers at times, so you're not just isolating the striker, because it's a solid defensive formation, right? But it also leaves you with a striker that's that isolated that he can't hold the ball up, and then you just invite pressure on yourself, and it keeps happening. So that was the problem. Whereas the formation that Gary O'Neill's opted for since he's come in is he's gone with a 4-5-1, which is much better, because it means that Bournemouth's wide players can push forward a bit more without having to worry about defensive responsibilities, and it suits players like Christie, Tavernier, Billing a lot more. So yeah, that's working for them at the moment. They've done quite well under Gary O'Neill so far. And yeah, they created a few chances throughout the game. They got the goal through Philip Billing. It was a really good cross by Jordan Zamora, who's a player I really like at the moment for Bournemouth, playing at left back. I think they're much better when he's playing in the team. And it was a really good, delicate touch from Billing to deflect it past Nick Pope. And Newcastle responded well to it, continuously getting forward, not sulking at all. And Kieran Trippier puts a cross in, Jefferson Lerma handballs. I don't think it was intentional, but his arm is out, so it had to be given as a penalty, and VAR did give it as a penalty, which Alexander Isak dispatched with great confidence. He absolutely hammered it into the bottom left corner, sending Neto the wrong way. And yes, Newcastle were defensively solid throughout the game. When Bournemouth posed a threat, they mostly dealt with it. And what I do like about Newcastle is the fact that most people thought when Newcastle were taken over, a year ago now, that it was going to be similar to the Man City takeover, in that they were going to start off by trying to sign any exciting attacking player. Like we saw it with Man City signing players like Emmanuel Adebayor, Carlos Tevez, Robinho, and quite a few others, before they had a squad that was good enough to accommodate those players. Whereas what I like about Newcastle is they have prioritised defending as well as attacking players. So in the January transfer window, obviously they signed Kieran Trippier, Matt Targett and Dan Burn. And that has set them up to play with a solid back four, which has really helped them. They also signed Sven Botman in summer, which is a really, really smart signing. He's only 22 years old and he already looks like a very good player. And as well as that, they have signed a great midfielder in Bruno Guimaraes, and also a very good forward in Alexander Isak, coming off the back of a poor season at Sociedad, but the year before, very good. And he already looks like a really good player for Newcastle. So I do that. I like that about the what Newcastle have done as a club. But yeah, I think yesterday it's fair to say they were a bit unlucky. Jay Linton hit the post, also had another shot saved in the first half. Trippier also hit the post in the first half from a free kick. So they were definitely a bit unlucky yesterday, Newcastle. But that just happens some games. Sometimes your luck's in, sometimes it's out. For Newcastle, yesterday was very much out. But Bournemouth look like they might have what it takes to stay up this season, so it's not looking too bad for them at the moment. They're getting points on the board. And then in the Saturday evening game, Tottenham played Leicester, and it got off to a bit of a shaky start with Tottenham. Leicester were attacking down the left-hand side through James Justin, and Davinson Sanchez is a player for Tottenham who hasn't been really a great signing, considering he signed for 40 million. What I think it was 5 years ago now. Um, and it was a silly tackle, clumsy, never going to win the ball, and it just it allows James Justin to sort of leave his leg where it is, plant his foot in the penalty area, and win the penalty. Tielemans took it, got saved by Lloris, but Lloris did encroach the area and was retaken, and Tielemans scored, putting it in the same place, but with a lot more power and accuracy. Tottenham responded to that well, though. They got a goal through Harry Kane. I mean, God knows how many he scored against Leicester. He seems to score against them every single time he plays against them. I think it's something like he scored 20 in his career against Leicester so far. So, I mean, that is just ridiculous. That's like Luis Suarez versus Norwich levels of goal scoring. Eric Dyer also got a goal from a header. Like, Tottenham are brilliant when it comes to set pieces. Ivan Perisic's ability to whip a ball into the box is just unmatched in the Premier League at the moment. I have to say that. And yeah, that put them 2-1 up. And Tottenham from there, they looked in control. But Leicester, similar to the game against Brighton the other week, going 1-0 up, 2-1 down, and then they pull one back before half time. This time through James Maddison. It was a brilliantly taken goal. He managed to cushion it just to like loop over Lloris sort of into the bottom left corner. Really well taken goal, and that levelled it at half time. But you never felt Leicester were going to win the game, because they just did look so defensively unstable throughout the game. Whenever a corner came, it was almost like head in hands time for Leicester. So yeah, they didn't really look like that they were ever going to get anything out of it. And yeah, it was another defensive calamity for the third goal. Wilfred Ndidi sort of hesitating on the ball, I guess, when it was played into him from Johnny Evans. Bentancur closes him down, wins the ball, runs forward with it, and scores his first ever Tottenham goal. And for me, Bentancur was probably my man of the match. On Saturday now. Because even though Son came off the bench and scored a hat-trick, I just thought Bentancur was vital in pretty much everything Tottenham did on Saturday. So for me, I think he's a worthy winner of man of the match. Son came off the bench though and bagged a 13-minute hat-trick. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, some players when they get dropped from starting 11, when they're like a high-profile player, a player who thinks they should be starting every game, they let their ego get the better of them. Son didn't do that. He came off the bench, scored 2 beautiful goals from outside the box, and the third one, again, another one where he was played through, typical Heung-min Son goal. Where he's played through and just slots it past the keeper. Ward's got a bit of his body to it, but it still trickled across the line. Initially given offside, but overruled by VAR correctly so, and Son got his hat-trick. And yeah, just brilliant performance from Spurs in the second half especially. Leicester, just again, defensively shocking. Attacking, not too bad, but just poor defensively, and the midfield, even with Ndidi going back into his familiar position of that sitting role in midfield, he still had quite a poor game by his standards. And yeah, they even when they had the ball in defence and midfield, they still look ponderous. It's not even just off the ball; it's on the ball as well, which is a real problem for them, considering the way Brendan Rodgers likes his team to play. And speaking of Brendan Rodgers, he's going to be under real pressure now. The international break has probably come at the worst time possible for him, because you don't want an international break when you're very, very under pressure as a manager, because it gives the owners a chance to find a replacement, bring them in, let them have a week with the players that aren't on international duty. And the way Leicester are playing at the moment, there's not going to be many players on international duty. So yeah, it's not looking good for Rodgers, but it is looking brilliant for Tottenham. They've got options off the bench. They're not limited to just one single starting 11 now, which they have been in previous years. Final game I want to cover from this weekend's action, Everton played West Ham and they won 1-0, and it shows improvement from Everton because they weren't getting results like this under Rafa Benitez last season. And even under the start of Frank Lampard's reign, they weren't getting results like this. He has made a big difference to this team, Frank Lampard, and you've got to give him a lot of credit for that. Everton, they showed that they have a solid back four now, which they didn't have at all last season. What they've got is a nailed on four players in their defence now. Ferguson, Mykolenko as the fullbacks, and then Cody and Tarkowski at centre back. And Conor Cody was receiving a lot of criticism whilst he was at Wolves towards the end of the season, and also when he's played for England, about the fact that he is unable to play in a back four. Well, he has showed for Everton so far this season that he is more than capable of doing so, because his positioning and his nous from just experience, I think more than anything, shows that he has definitely got the ability needed to play defence, especially even if he hasn't got the pace. And they got the goal through Neil Maupay. It was a fairly uneventful first half, but Maupay put the game put some life into the game with his goal. It was a good, I don't know if he meant it, but it turned out to be a good touch that set it up for him well, hits it on the half volley, and surprises Fabianski in the West Ham goal and gives him very little chance of saving it. It was a really well taken goal. But Maupay, one thing I think everyone can agree on is that he is a player who does need to work on his goal scoring. He seems to be a player who almost has as good a chance of scoring a hard chance as he does an easy one, because he had a fairly easy chance against Liverpool last week, missed it, but he took his one chance that he got today really well. So if he can work on that, then I think that means he can sort of back up the shithouse role he likes to play in the Premier League. West Ham, they were really struggling until they made a couple of substitutions in the second half, brought on Ben Rama and Maxwell Cornet, and that was when they started to create a couple of chances. Ben Rama was really unlucky not to score, hit the post. He seems to hit the post every time I turn on a West Ham game for some reason, Ben Rama. Cornet did have a couple of chances, but he was up against a very stubborn Nathan Ferguson at right back, who refused to let him score a goal, basically. The chance he got where he tried to let it roll across his body, Ferguson did superbly well to just get a little toe on it to send him away from goal. Brilliant defending from Ferguson in West Ham's defence, in Everton's defence, sorry. I think what this is starting to show is we are moving towards, or we already have moved towards, a game now, especially in English football, where it is more about man management than tactics, because we're seeing all these tactical geniuses like Rafa Benitez and Jose Mourinho that were brilliant 15 years ago. They're not working anymore. And people like Frank Lampard and David Moyes, although West Ham are not playing very well so far this season, they're the managers you need to get the best out of your players now. Players need to feel like they're wanted, sort of more than they are just numbers on a spreadsheet. That's just my opinion from the outside. But I think that probably is correct though. And West Ham, it's what's happening with them is what sometimes happens when you are trying to add a few new players to the team, like Scamacca, Paqueta and Cornet. You struggle to find what is your best attacking setup, and that's what they've struggled with. They've gone with many options so far this season. But the one thing I do also want to point out is that they were giving Thilo Kehrer in West Ham's defence a lot of credit, saying he played well. I can't be the only one who thought he's been poor since he's joined West Ham so far. I just every time I've watched West Ham, I've never thought that he's had a good game. He doesn't I never rated him when he played at PSG. To be honest, he was poor in the Champions League final a few years ago. But yeah, another really good result for Everton. They're on an unbeaten run right now. I think it's 5 games without a defeat.